This is a meeting of the Planning Commission for April 7, 2016. My name is Edward Simeoni. I'm chairing for Paul Travis that could not be here today. Today we're just going to review the North Sea Road, Windmill Lane Office Business District zoning study. As the public knows, we've been looking at this in the last several months, and last month we had a presentation by Nelson Pope and Verhus concerning the possibility of creating an overlay district in the office district on North Sea Road, Windmill Lane, that would allow the use of retail space, retail use, in addition to office use. Following that meeting, there were several questions that were asked by the public, and Nelson Pope has come back to us with some additional recommendations and answers to those questions. As a quick overview, the village has 7 business districts, which are comprised of the Hampton Road Office District, the Village Business District, the Highway Business, the Village Hospital and Accessory, Medical District, Light Industry, and the Office District, which is the North Sea Road, Windmill Lane, and on Flying Point Road. Prior to, I believe, 19-something, the North Sea Road, Windmill Lane did allow for retail space, so we do have in that area retail and office. So although presently it's zoned for only office, we do have pre-existing non-conforming retail spaces that are actually quite successful. And in my view, at least, I think it would behoove us to be able to expand that use from just office to retail, since the office demand has been decreasing, whereas I think we definitely have a need for retail space in the Southampton Village that will cater more to the local population versus just the summer rentals and the tourists, which will shop mainly in the Village Business District. Also, one must consider that the type of retail that one would find on the North Sea Road will be different from the retail that we have in the Village District. We've had questions asking whether there would be a conflict or the North Sea Road retail would detract from the village, from the main village, but I really don't think so for various reasons. The type of zoning would be different. In the village, you have a very close proximity. It's mainly walkable. It attracts high-end type stores, whereas in the North Sea Road, I would expect that you have more auto-centric and less walkable type of retail spaces, maybe larger, more spaced. The buildings will be spaced further apart, and I believe will attract a different type of retail that will attract, will be catered more for the local populace. I'll just review quickly the responses that we received from Nelson Pope and Verhus concerning the questions that were asked. And the first question here was, why is there a need for the office limited retail overlay district? There are many vacancies in the downtown village business, especially in the off-season. Does the village really have too much office space, not enough retail? Nelson, the response is that, as I just mentioned before, the North Sea Road already has retail use there that has been working quite well, and they already have a mixed-use district. A recent study by a Gibbs Planning Group in 2013 says that there is an unmet demand for retail space which could be satisfied by North Sea Road. Nelson Pope also has a study that shows that additional retail space will be required. And there's so many others that I think also very important, noted that you have other existing non-conforming retail uses such as Smith's, Tate's Bakery, and Peconic Meats. If they should close down, if we don't make a change on the overlay district, they would no longer be able to be converted to retail. They would become office space. So they really feel that a retail would invigorate the area and would also make sure that we maintain the retails that are there. They talk about the actual vacancy rates, and in summary, the Village Business District, the vacancy rates are really due to seasonal type of businesses that come in to cater to the summer demand and then may move out and then come back again. Somebody asked about downtown becoming a ghost town. Need to be careful about competition. Again, the type of retail will be completely different. I don't think we have to worry about it. Large anchor businesses would surely go downtown. Interesting whether the overlay district should be extended down Windmill Lane, down to Lord Apprentice Park. Nelson Pope really don't think it should. They feel that the overlay district should be limited to frontage on North Sea Road up to White Street and to County Road 39. Again, reason being mainly to make sure that the retail does not encroach on the residential areas as well. There are standards that would be imposed in order to protect the local residential areas that may be adjacent to the retail areas. Very long discussion there. And the rents obviously would be much different. We would assume that the rents in the North Sea Road would be lower in order to cater to local year-round businesses. And the last part, it talks about no to excess traffic impacts. And Nelson Pope, although they did not make a study, they feel that it should not be negatively impacted because most of the access to North Sea would be on lateral roads. There are not that many right on North Sea, so they're not really too concerned about it. Somebody asked about dog grooming, that would be permitted. To note that the overlay district would require a special permit, and the special permit would have guidelines and very specific type of uses that would protect the area from any kind of overdevelopment. There would also be zoning regulations that would regulate the size and the and the setbacks, and also the parking. In final analysis, I think this board, having reviewed the study that was presented by Nelson Pope and Voorhees, and the answers that came back to the questions that were posed, I think that the Planning Commission will favor the creation of an office limited retail overlay district that will allow retail use in the area. That's it. I tried to review it. If there's any questions.
One-man team, you did great.
I did great, thank you. I was trying to summarize
I know.
this big thing here. Go ahead. As you see, we have a full board here, so you can address your questions to any one of us.
I'll address it to you, sir, and any other board members that feel by spirit that they're here. My name is Bo Robinson. I am a property owner on North Sea Road and have sponsored, if you will, this project. I just wanted to reiterate and sort of readdress the commentary that is included in the Nelson Pope letter of March 31, 2016, and your comments, specifically with regard to really sort of maybe a more rhetorical question that was posed at the last meeting by a board member concerning the vacancy rate of stores or properties here in the what I call the core area, the Hampton Road, Main Street, Jobs Lane area, that might be impacted by an expansion of the retail area. Firstly, I'd like to say that I think Nelson Pope should be commended for their 62-page report, which really comprehensively addressed what I think is every viable issue with regard to this project, and documented it very well with research and their own the micro research of interviewing village business people, realtors, shop owners, landlords, representatives, and a more macro approach to what the retail trade and markets look like within the township east of Riverhead. And they have then taken the commentary that occurred at the last meeting and issued an 8-page report, which you just went through, plus adopting the map to include the Bennett law of this property. But in my opinion, based upon what I've seen as a lifelong resident of Southampton and a business person here for 40 years, is that the rent vacancies in the core area are not so much generated by potential competition elsewhere, but simply rents that tenants find incapable of paying and making a profit off their business. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a good example of a building at 44 Main Street on the east side of the street that was for years a very high-end home goods and antique store. The store always had very nice window displays seasonally, owned and operated by a local resident. And after a change either in ownership or management, after many years there, I think probably upwards of 15 years or more, the rent was substantially increased to the point where that business went off Main Street. It then became a clothier based out of New York with a satellite store out here. That went on for a couple of years, and now there is a for rent sign in the building and it's vacant. So that has nothing to do with, in my opinion, other than a rent that's not sustainable. That a tenant simply cannot pay that rent, pay the staff, and then make a fair profit off the business. What we look forward to with North Sea Road retail business would be an area where rents could be lesser, but you're not going to find many people who want to open a clothing store, a brick and mortar clothing store that's based upon basically street traffic in that area. So I find that those are not competitive with this area, that they're compatible, that you need, any municipality or shopping area needs a certain amount of energy and business traffic to generate their own sales, and I think this will foster that. But at the present time, North Sea Road is just a underused asset with no hope of changing because the demand for offices is virtually zero. There are many offices on the second floors of Main Street properties that are vacant. In my building, there's been an office vacant for probably more than 2 years. And that rent is very competitive. So I will hope that the board can adopt the report and the March 31st letter at the next meeting and forward this matter to the trustees with the the board's adoption and recommendation of that so that the trustees can then establish public hearings and we can move forward.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you on all these issues. Even concerning the vacancy, even Nelson Pope, I mean, when they're talking about vacancies, you see the storefronts, and those may be the ones that most, come to your attention, but the vacancy rate is only 7%.
Correct.
This was in 2014, so we're not talking about any major problem of vacancy in the village. And also, I think that a lot of the businesses are seasonal. That is, they will cater to the crowd during the summertime, but then, of course, they're not gonna want to pay those rents in the wintertime where they don't have the same type of foot traffic. Again, the village center is a type of retail that caters to foot traffic, people walking on the sidewalks, going in, doing things. A lot of clothing stores, they cater to, to the tourists and to the summertime residents. Whereas what we really need is retail space, I feel, that will cater to the local residents, a type of business that will be year-round and that the residents can go to, they'll be driving to. It's not the type of business that you walk through like you do in the village center. So I have to tend to agree with you wholeheartedly. And that whole area really needs to something, a stimulus to develop, because right now, it just doesn't look great.
There's no incentive.
There's no
incentive
to do anything.
Those properties are maxed out in terms of their capacity.
Right.
There's no incentive. They can't do anything further with those properties.
Exactly.
Another factor, Mr. Semene, too, I think, is there's been a huge transition in the village over the last 20 years to absentee commercial landlord businesses. And those businesses, when somebody like a major national retailer like Brooks Brothers or J. Crew is generating income out of other stores and other sources, if they have a marginal profit here in Southampton, they can afford to stay with that.
Right.
And much because they're
It's an
they're not
advertising.
dependent on this alone.
Right.
Much like a commercial landlord, when a commercial landlord has, I'm thinking of the Folk and Folk building on Job's Lane that was completely redone, and that is now 3 separate stores. The commercial landlord there, if they're generating other revenue, they can afford to hold out
Right.
of a rental or not reduce the rental price on the theory that they'd rather do that and wait to see if they're going to get a tenant that can pay the price,
Right.
as opposed to a local person who would know that in order to survive, they're going to have to reduce the price.
Correct.
I think on page 7 of the March 31st letter of Nelson Pope, that commentary is addressed. It says, if North Sea Road opens up to retail use, the area may actually see a decrease in rental rates overall.
Right.
And that is a theory, again, that the free market and competition will, have a tendency to make rates more competitive.
Right.
And I think actually it wouldn't be a bad idea if that happened to the Main Street area, but that's, not for consideration here. But I would ask again if the board could move forward with this at the next meeting and that we could get this to the trustees. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? All right. Again, we can't vote because I don't have a quorum except for myself, and obviously we need the chair to be here as well to give his assessment. But my feeling is that the study has been quite comprehensive and exhaustive, has answered many, if not all, questions that were posed, and I would say satisfactorily. And my feeling is that the overlay district would be successful in revitalizing the area and creating a positive development for the area as well. My only question is whether the special exception, whether we should have it as a special exception where it has to go in front of the trustees, or whether maybe there's a possibility of creating guidelines that would allow a as-of-right type of development so that you wouldn't have to go through a whole process, as long as it's very clear what guidelines are existing. However, the special exception can work very well. It's contemplated already in our present zoning. Therefore, maybe it is the quickest way in order to go forward. But I personally would not be against some kind of guidelines that would allow people to know what they can do ahead of time and be able to plan for it and go forward. A lot like we did with the wetlands, where we created guidelines so that one would not have to go in front of the ZBA constantly in order to do any kind of development, as long as it follows certain guidelines. That's just an idea, something I just mentioned with Paul as well, so I don't know if it's something that's the village wants to, the trustees want to consider, but as far as the study that we have right now, personally I feel it should go forward, and I am sure that we'll be able to vote on it on the next session. That's it. I would say this will end the meeting of the Planning Commission for April 7th. Thank you.